Hello and welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. Now, a puzzle that we've been thinking about showing to you for some time and getting into is Slitherlink, or Loop the Loop it's sometimes called, or just Loop. We haven't really been able to, but now that pzv.jp have developed this interface that we've been using for Star Battle occasionally and for Kurt's recent 6x6 puzzle, we can do it. And first of all, I'm just going to take you through some of firstly the rules, which are that you have to put straight lines between some of the dots in the puzzle to form a loop, and a single loop that connects with itself, but only one loop. And the cells with numbers in show the number of lines of the loop around that cell. So that's the rules. Now I'm going to take you through some of the basic techniques for getting started, and then I will discuss something that I've noticed recently and ask your opinion about it, and then I'll try and solve this puzzle, which is by Prasanna Seshadri and which was on gmpuzzles.com, to whom we recommend highly. So now, some of the basic techniques. There are some particular patterns that are very useful in Slitherlink, and possibly the best of all is exemplified here in the middle. In this puzzle there's a 0 next to a 3. Now wherever that happens, that's great, because you can decide that none of the dots around the 0 are connected, and I shall just put in X's to say they are not connected. Now that immediately leaves 3 of the dots, or 3 of the possible lines around the 3, and you can just draw them in. They're absolutely guaranteed. More than that, they now have to leave this spot here. They can't connect together, obviously, because that would first of all spoil the loop. It would only, the loop would end immediately, but secondly it would go over one of the 0 lines, so they have to come out. So every time you see a 0 next to a 3, this pattern is absolutely guaranteed, and that's the most useful one I think there is. Now there are other things that help. This puzzle doesn't have any of them, but if you have, let's just pretend that these two numbers down here next to each other, instead of being 2s, were 3s. If you get 3s next to each other, that's very powerful, and you can immediately draw in this pattern. Now, why can you do that? Not only can you draw that in, by the way, you know that it will either connect up in an S shape like that, or in the alternative reversed S shape like that. Now, why can you be sure of that? If these are 3s, well, the first thing to do is to imagine what would happen if this was a line. No, actually, the first thing to do is what would happen if there was no line between them. And then they would only have 3 each that they could possibly be, and that would create a loop, which is not allowable. So we can be absolutely sure that there must be a line between them. So that's a given. Now the other thing to say is, what if there was a gap at the end of one of the 3s, so there was no line there? Well, then you'd have to draw the other 2 lines for the 3 at the top, and the 3 at the bottom could now not have 3 lines. It could have a maximum of 2. So there must always be a line at the end, and that was why I was able to immediately assume that any 3x3 is that shape. Now the other thing we know is that both of them have to have 3 lines in this case, so one of them must have a line on one side, and that prevents the other having a line on the same side. Its third line must be on the other side. So that's why I was able to say that. Now unfortunately, as I say, in this actual puzzle we don't have any 3s right next to each other, but we do have 3s diagonally next to each other. And whenever you see that, you can always draw in this pattern opposite them. That's absolutely guaranteed. Now, I could go into why that is. It revolves around the dot in the center, basically, and the fact that it must always only have a maximum of 1 from each of those 3s coming into it. Otherwise, because if either of them had 2 coming into it, this now can't have 3. So there can only be 1 coming into that dot, so there must be the 2 outside it. So you can always do that with these 3s. So I could actually do that with every 3s on a diagonal pair in the grid, and I'm going to, because that's going to help us get started. Another one here. Some of these are actually overlapping, so we get the full 3s. So this one, for instance, we can now X the other cell out if we want to, as impossible. So we've got 3 there. Now, there are some other patterns that I know about, but there aren't many that instantly give you something to go on. If you have 0 next to 2 on the edge, that's actually very helpful. You can immediately draw in 4 lines. And I'll let you think about that if you want. But the particular case I was considering was 0 diagonally next to 2. Now, when you're here, we've got an example. You have 0 next to 2 here. Now, whenever you have this, you know that this dot here between the 0 and the 2 must either have 2 lines coming into it or none. It can't just have one of the 2 lines coming into it with the other one below it, because then where would it go away? It can't go up or along into the 0, and it can't come down into the 2 because we've said that we weren't having the other line next to the 2. So my point is that whenever there's a 2 or a 0, you know that the 2 lines are either touching the dot next to the 0 or not touching it, not one of them only touching it. Now, I was then thinking about that and wondering whether that meant that uniqueness would determine that it always had to be the 2 lines closest to the 0 that went in and touched it. Because otherwise, I was speculating that if you had this shape in a grid where there was a 2, 0 diagonally touching, that it must always have an ambiguous solution with this shape, and therefore this shape must always be right. Now, I think that that's not right whenever you have anything just outside the 2 that proves where a line might or might not be. So that was something I was pondering. I still think the case might apply if surrounding the 2 you had blank cells. I think my theory would be right, that you could always draw the lines in touching the common dot, but it's not that helpful in that case. Now, with this 0 and 2, again, we know that the lines are either 2 lines on the outside or 2 lines on the inside, and in fact we know they can't be there because of this 0. So this time we can draw them straight in there. And now this part of the loop has to move away from the 0 without touching it. We can put it up there. So let's actually surround the 0s we've got with X's, just to make it clear what I'm seeing some of the time. We've only got 3 0s in the grid, so they're done. However, there are other places where lines can't continue and join the loop. And I'm going to find those ones that I can spot fairly quickly and fill them in. I might miss some doing this sort of thing because I've done enough Slitherlinks that, you know, some of this is fairly second nature to me. On the other hand, some of it isn't. If you were seeing my friend Neil Zussman do this puzzle, he'd do it in about 2 minutes, I would think. And I may be insulting him saying it'd take that long. Simon is much better than me at Slitherlink. I'm very happy to admit that. He would take, I would guess, 4 or 5 minutes on this puzzle. For me, it's going to be at least 10. Oh, what have I done here? I've done something wrong here. That line's an error. Sorry, I don't know how that got in. That was a mistake. So, in some ways that might help in terms of teaching about it because you can learn along with me. But on the other hand, bear in mind, I am not a Slitherlink expert. I don't claim to be, and I know I'm not. Now up here, this line can't be a 1 either. We've done the 1s there. So obviously the loop can't get into the corner there. So I think this is kind of our starting position, the things we've learnt from the patterns that we know to start with. This 3 and 0 was the most useful, but these 3s on the diagonal, very helpful as well. And that 2 was quite useful too. So next to a 0. So we're here at the moment, and now I'm going to have to try and progress this a bit. Let's see what else we can learn about this puzzle. Now, this 2 is very useful. Yes, we can X out those, and to make up that 2, we know we have to have a line here. So that's good. Anything else? Well, sometimes you can work out around these 3s, especially where there are impossibilities. So I'm going to say, what if there was a line connecting those two 3s up here? So this is a speculative line. I don't believe that line, and here's why. Because this 3 would now have to connect up like this. This one, which has now got a definite blank in it, would have to connect up like this, and that breaks the loop. It creates a tiny loop that can't be part of the larger loop that we need it to be. So that is clearly wrong. This is clearly not a line, and therefore these 2 must connect down to the 3 like that. So we can draw those out a little further. This one I don't know. I don't want to draw it down there in case it goes along to the right. Can't be certain about that. Now those are fixed. Now this is quite interesting here with these 3s. These 3s can't join up like that, because now you'd have 3 loop ends to join together that can't get out. So that cannot possibly be right. So one of these 3s must come out and come down to using this 2. The other one not, is how I would see that. So we've got one line that must take up one of these 4 line ends here. Then 2 of them will connect with each other, and we'll be left with one line end coming out into this segment. Actually, it's worth adding up the line ends going into it. So maybe we've got one here, although that might turn down. Here we've got 2, and here we don't know, because that might go along this way or it might go up into it. So that's not useful yet, but you always have to have an even number of line ends going into an area that they can't get out of. I'm sorry, I hope you followed that. It is logical. It may not be explained logically. Now, okay, this is an interesting point. We've got a 1 here, and we know that these 2 lines around the 0 are not possible. So therefore, we can block out both of these possible lines. And the reason for that is because if they went into this dot next to the 0, they'd have to come out as well. That would create 2 around the 1 rather than just 1. So the same's true there as well. Now this 2's been completed too. There can be no line here because it couldn't get away from this dot. So that's some progress as well. Oh, sorry, that is clearly not. Sorry, when I was trying to X out those 2 lines, I obviously did one wrongly. Now this is getting quite interesting. Now this cell here, this connection here between these 2 dots, can that be a line? 1 is fine for both of those ones, but where would it go from here? It would either go up and break that one, or go down and break that one. So this is not a line, and that's really useful for this one. We can now fill in its line. It must be here. And it must carry on downwards. It must fulfill that 1, so this is not a line, so it must carry on downwards. And then up at the top, it must carry on upwards. That fulfills this 1, so it must carry on upwards again. And suddenly we've got a 6th length line on the right-hand perimeter, which we didn't have at all a moment ago. So that's quite a step forward. Now we don't know at the bottom whether it goes down to the bottom and comes around here, or whether it goes straight in there. It's quite interesting. Either we've got a line there or there. Now if we had this line, we could draw in these 2. Conversely, if we had this line, we could draw in these 2, because of how a line coming into a 3 determines that it can't use both the 2 it's coming in at. in both of those patterns, we're using this line. So we can put that one in, even though we can't be sure of the other ends. And that might help us either now or later. Now, we've got a line here that can't... Oh no, we've got a 1 here that needs its last side to be made up. I could probably have done that a while ago. That's good. At the bottom, it must turn right into that line. Now, up here, if we were to continue this line upwards, which is possible, it could come past that 1, it can't turn right, that would make it 2 on the 1, so it could go up again. But now how could this 2 be achieved? Only by 2 lines that come down here, and they couldn't get away without using a 3rd line, so that's not possible. So this is not a line, so therefore the 1 comes across. And the 2 now, a bit like that 2 with a 0, will either be along those 2 or along the other sides. In fact, it can't be along the other sides, that one's fulfilled. So we can fill in the 2 there. So that's good. Now, could this shape end here? I don't know that yet. The 2 can't turn left, so it could end there. No, it can't. If this was a line along here, then the 2 would have to be fulfilled by a line along here. And where would that get away on the right? Either down breaking the 2 or up breaking the 1. So that cannot be a line. So we can X that. Now both these lines have to go upwards, and that completes the 2. This line has to keep going upwards. That completes the 1. So the line has to go up all the way into the corner and turn around. This line has to come out there. This one can't come down here, or it would need 2 around the 1, so it has to go straight on. That knocks out all the 1s. It has to go straight on again. And now we've got 4 line ends that have to meet up here. How are they going to do that? So we can either close off this part of the loop and this part of the loop, or these 2 can join together and those 2 can join together. We obviously can't join this line end to this one, or it would have to cross with the joining of the other 2. But which do we... Now this can't be a cell here between these 2, because it could never get out at the bottom. So we know where the 1 for this 1 is. It's there. What are the possibilities here? If this 2 was fulfilled by a line at the bottom, then they'd have to go round at the top. Yeah, this would have to go around the top. That would make this 2, that would make this join up. It's not possible. Look, I'll try and show that. If this was the second line for the 2, now that 2 would have been used up. So this line can't come down. It would have to go along and round. That uses up the line for that, the lines for that 2. Now the only way for this to get out is to make up this 2 in a way that won't allow the other line end to work. So that's not right. So we go back to this position, and we now know this is not a line. Therefore the 2 is made up that way. Now does that help us finish it off? If this, oh yeah, this can't go up anymore because it couldn't get out, so it comes straight along. This must now turn left. That's completed this 2, and these 2 lines must go straight across. So there we go. We've got that northeast corner of the loop all done. Hurrah. This line can't turn right because it couldn't get out, so it can come down 1 more. And here's my 2 and 0, but not only do I not know that it goes in, which was what I'd been speculating by uniqueness, but I don't actually know whether it goes out either. Just can't tell. But remember that thing with the 3s in diagonals up here? If I was to speculate a line here, yeah, that's not possible, because then I'd have to join up these 2 3s. So that's not right. So this is not a line. And that means this 3, Oh no, I still don't know if it... Yeah, okay, I do know. It can't have a line... Oh no, I don't know. I was going to say it can't have a line there, but it could. Yeah, I don't know whether this one... I don't know which side of the one we're drawing the line here. Maybe I should know, but I don't, so I'm going to have to try and find something else. Now, something round here. I don't know, I'm going back to this 1 and 2. I'm sure there's a way of working this out. If that was a line, I just don't know. Maybe I need to work on the number of line segments I've got going into various parts of the grid. Maybe that's the best way to do it at this point. That's not a line for what it's worth. What can I do? This is tricky at this point. I mean, maybe it's not meant to be, but I'm struggling a bit now. I can't join up both of these lines down. I can't put both this line and this line in, because then both of these would have to come out past the 1. So I can only put a maximum of one of them in. And it could be neither. I could instead have lines on both the horizontal sides of the 3s. Now I'm just going to speculate, because I think this is unlikely. If there was a line to the left of the 3, that would have to come out there. This couldn't come out next to the 1, so it would come out there. Now what would I have learnt? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 line segments here. I'd need another line segment to be coming in. Would I? Yes, I would. That couldn't curl around and come up, so it would have to come out. So that looks possible. Wow, yeah, there, I can see an arrangement where that does work. But this 2 is no longer possible if that happens, because it would now need to be those 2, and this line couldn't go anywhere. So that does not work. So let's hope I can unwind all the bits I just did there. I think we're in this situation, and we've just proved there isn't a line at this top end. So therefore the 3 line is there. Yeah. I mean, that's good. This is now not a line, and I've just worked out that this has to be a line. If this was not a line, no, I haven't worked that out, but okay, I haven't worked that out. But one of these is a line around the 1. I think. No, I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, let's carry on with this line that we've got coming in here now. So that comes to there. It can't go up or down again, so it carries on. Now this is a matter of how many line segments we have on the left. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ends, 6, 7. We do need this end to be in this kind of left, middle and north section. So this has to go around and come back in. That's how to figure that one out, because there has to be an even number of ends. Now we can't join across, so this goes up and this goes up. That fulfills the 2. This 2, now this is a very useful general tip. If you can get situations in the grid where you've got 2 lines like these 2, I'm just pointing to them again, like these 2, they kind of rule out both of those cells. So now this 2 can have both its lines drawn in, and it looks like that. This 3 now has to be in that order. This line has to go across to there. And finally that joins up there. So we've got all the north half done. Excellent. Now, what about down here? Okay, now these can't be, there are kind of different arrangements with 2 3s and this boxy setup. Now one of them is to draw a line straight across the middle, but that's impossible because this line couldn't get out. So that's not how it works. Another is to draw a line straight down the middle, same thing, this line can't get out. So that's not the situation here. The only other possibilities, we can't have those 2 lines being drawn because then this would form its own little loop, and that's not possible. So the alternative is to draw these 2 lines in here, and that must be what we have here. So this line has to go across, it can't come down now or that forms its own loop, so it goes across there. This 3 now needs 1 at the top. So X there, and we can now finish off this 1, and we now learn where the 2 lines, do they go into the 0? No, so they go around it, which has disproved my theory. Excellent. Now this, look at this loop, this would join up if we did a line here, so we know that's not a line. This 2, therefore, this end of the loop has to come down, this one has to come down, that's fulfilled this 2, we can put another X in. This 2, the only second line has to be there, this now has to come out and join up. So now we get to this situation with just the finish to come. Now we still don't know whether this comes down and joins on there, or it could even go up. No, it couldn't do that. It can't come up there because okay, the reason this is not here, I'm putting a line in here. If I didn't put a line in there, I would have to put 2 lines here, and this 2 couldn't be achieved. So therefore I'm putting a line in there. It doesn't finish this 2 off. Actually, no, it doesn't, no. So this could still either come down here like this and come out like that, that's possible, or it could come straight across like that and this could carry on some other way. Now, what would happen if it came straight down like that? This would have to go across there, this would have to come out and join up. This 2 would need those 2, that works for this 2, works for this 1, but now we can't join up to this line without breaking this 1. So that's not the arrangement. Crikey. Okay, so we don't go down to the bottom with this line, we go across. We don't go across there or the line never comes out, we go down there. So this is still going to have to join up either to this line or this line. No, it can't join to this line because then those 2 would have to join up and make a loop. So this is joining to this line, but we don't know if it goes across here using those 2 2s or up here not using them. Let us speculate that it did that. Now again, I think we'd run into the same problem with this loop. We'd be fine till there and then it would break at the last one. So that's not what it does. So instead it goes round there. That 2's finished. This 2 gets finished there. And now finally we can draw the line straight across to finish the 1s and we're done. So that is Slitherlink. I mean, it really is an entertaining puzzle. That was me doing it at my speed, not a great speed, but as I say, I promise you my friend Neil would finish that in 2 or 3 minutes. Simon in a little longer than that. They're a lot better at this than me, and they probably have seen some of the patterns on a recurring basis and know how to use them, but it's quite good fun from a logic basis, but it certainly helps to have those few starting tips. Now I'll think a bit more about my uniqueness idea with 0s and 2s. I think that does work if 0 is diagonally next to 2 and the 2 has no numbers around it. but that's probably quite a rare situation. But anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope that was of some interest to you. As I say, this puzzle came from gmpuzzles.com. It was by Prasenna Seshadri and a very useful learning experience. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you again soon on Cracking the Cryptic. Bye for now.